Because about the time when he came out with She's Gotta Have It, that was probably the longest period of time that basically black culture had really not been reflected in the Hollywood mainstream. I mean, I'm even surprised that blacks went to the movies at all. I can't believe that they, would go.
Few filmmakers in history have ever shaped cinema like Quentin Tarantino. The man behind Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood built an empire on blood, brilliance, and boldness. But behind his razor-sharp dialogue and obsessive attention to detail lies a fire that Hollywood insiders have whispered about for decades. A fire fueled by grudges, rivalries, and pure creative fury. Now, at 62, Tarantino has finally done something no one thought he ever would. He's opened up about the 5 actors he hates the most. These aren't petty dislikes or fleeting feuds. These are names that represent betrayal, ego clashes, and artistic battles that turned toxic behind the camera. For years, the film industry has speculated about the directors and stars who clashed with him. The ones who couldn't handle his intensity, his perfectionism, or his brutally honest criticism. But Tarantino's revelations didn't come as a rant. They came as a confession. In a rare interview, he admitted, "Some people don't understand that filmmaking isn't about comfort. It's about honesty. And some actors just can't handle that." Those words sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Who were the 5 actors he was talking about? Were they the ones who walked off his sets, who refused to work with him again, or who mocked his methods behind closed doors? In this deep dive, we uncover the truth behind Tarantino's explosive confession, the hidden rivalries, the bitter endings, and the real stories behind the actors who made the world's most controversial directors say, "I never want to work with them again." Quentin Tarantino's rise to fame was anything but ordinary. From working in a video rental store to rewriting Hollywood's rules with Reservoir Dogs, he became the voice of a new kind of filmmaking. Loud, fearless, and unapologetically personal. But that passion came with a price. From the very start, Tarantino made it clear that his sets were his kingdom. And anyone who challenged that authority would not last long. The first major fallout came early in his career, during the filming of Reservoir Dogs. Tarantino was still new, still hungry, and determined to prove himself. But one of his lead actors, an older, established star, wasn't impressed. The actor reportedly didn't like taking direction from someone he considered a rookie. He questioned Tarantino's choices, argued about dialogue, and constantly tried to rewrite his own lines. Tarantino, who famously writes every word of his scripts with surgical precision, wasn't having it. Crew members still remember the tension that filled the room during one particular scene. Tarantino stopped everything, walked up to the actor, and said in front of everyone, "If you don't trust the words, you shouldn't have taken the role." The room fell silent. The actor finished the film, but he never worked with Tarantino again. Years later, Tarantino hinted that this man, one of the first major names to doubt him, was on his private list of people he'd never forgive. "Ego is fine," Tarantino once said, "but when ego gets in the way of the movie, you're dead to me." That early experience defined his approach to filmmaking forever. He decided he would rather lose a famous face than compromise his vision, and that mindset followed him through every project he made. As Tarantino's success exploded with Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and Kill Bill, so did his reputation. Actors called him a genius, but also a tyrant. He demanded everything: emotion, energy, and complete surrender to his world. Most respected it, a few resented it, and some simply couldn't handle it. One of those actors, a Hollywood A-lister known for his unpredictable temper, clashed with Tarantino in ways that became legendary. Their collaboration was supposed to be a dream, 2 creative powerhouses making art together. Instead, it turned into a war of words and pride. According to insiders, Tarantino would give detailed, almost obsessive notes after every take, while the actor wanted freedom to improvise. "He doesn't want to act," Tarantino allegedly snapped one day. "He wants to compete." The tension grew until one afternoon the actor stormed off the set, shouting that he'd never work with this control freak again. The fallout was so intense that Tarantino later admitted he rewrote parts of the film just to minimize the actor's screen time. When asked about it years later, he didn't name names but said, "Some actors mistake chaos for creativity. I don't." That line alone was enough for Hollywood to start guessing and gossiping. For Tarantino, these early conflicts weren't just about personality. They were about loyalty to the art. He once said, "A movie set isn't a democracy, it's a dictatorship, and I'm the dictator, but a benevolent one." It might sound harsh, but that ruthless honesty is exactly what makes him who he is. A filmmaker unwilling to bend, even for Hollywood's biggest stars. And while those first two feuds left bruises, the next ones cut deeper. Because in the years that followed, Tarantino would face betrayal not from outsiders, but from actors he once called friends, people he helped turn into stars, only to watch them turn against him when the spotlight shifted. By the time Quentin Tarantino became a household name, he wasn't just a director, he was a movement. His style defined the 1990s. Every actor in Hollywood wanted to be part of his universe, where dialogue was sharp, violence was poetic, and every frame felt like rebellion. But with that fame came something Tarantino never expected: betrayal from the very people he helped build. One of his closest collaborators, a man he once called a brother, became one of his most painful disappointments. They had worked together on one of Tarantino's most iconic films, the kind that changes careers overnight. The actor's fame skyrocketed after that movie, and suddenly the balance between friendship and success began to shift. At first, Tarantino was proud. He had always believed in his friend's talent. But soon, whispers began to reach him that the actor had started taking credit for Tarantino's writing, claiming he had helped shape certain scenes. It was subtle at first, then bolder, until finally, it reached Tarantino's ears directly. When confronted, the actor brushed it off, saying, "It's all part of the myth, man." But Tarantino didn't see it as myth-making. He saw it as betrayal. To him, loyalty wasn't negotiable. He'd given this man a platform, a voice, a career, and now that same person was rewriting history for his own benefit. Their friendship ended that day. When reporters later asked if he'd work with that actor again, Tarantino's answer was cold and final. "Once you stab me in the back, the only role you'll play in my movie is the corpse." That quote spread like wildfire across Hollywood. Insiders began speculating who he meant, and while Tarantino never confirmed it, everyone who'd been around him long enough could guess. But that wasn't the only friendship gone wrong. Another feud brewed during the making of a later film, one that pushed Tarantino's patience to its limits. The actor involved was charismatic, unpredictable, and loved improvisation. But on Tarantino's set, improvisation was a sin. Every line mattered. Every pause had purpose. The two started butting heads almost immediately. The actor accused Tarantino of being too controlling, while Tarantino felt the actor lacked discipline. What started as creative tension quickly turned personal. Crew members recalled heated arguments, slammed doors, and long silences between takes. In one infamous incident, Tarantino reportedly stopped filming mid-scene, turned to the crew and said, "We'll shoot this when he decides he's ready to act, not perform." The message was clear. There was only room for one director on a Tarantino set. When the film wrapped, the actor refused to promote it, claiming the experience had been draining. Tarantino, on the other hand, made sure that actor's name never appeared on another of his call sheets. As one longtime collaborator later said, "Quentin doesn't forget. He forgives privately, but he never forgets publicly. The betrayals hurt not just because of the clashes, but because of what they represented. To Tarantino, loyalty meant more than fame or awards. He believed that when you stepped onto his set, you joined a family, one built on trust and respect. Breaking that trust was unforgivable. In later interviews, he hinted at those wounds without naming names. "I've worked with actors who became legends," he said once, "and others who became lessons. Those lessons hardened him. He became more selective, more guarded. The man who once believed in artistic brotherhood now saw the business for what it truly was. A battlefield where loyalty often came second to ego. Still, as much as those betrayals burned, the most shocking feuds were yet to come. Because as Tarantino's fame grew, so did his boldness. And soon, his creative control would bring him face to face with two actors who would test his patience, his pride, and even his reputation. By the mid-2000s, Quentin Tarantino was no longer the hungry newcomer from Reservoir Dogs. He was Hollywood royalty. Every studio wanted him. Every actor dreamed of working with him. But that power also created tension. When two big personalities collide, especially in a Tarantino film, where passion burns hotter than blood, explosions are inevitable. The first of these clashes came during the making of one of his most ambitious projects, a film that blended historical fiction with Tarantino's signature intensity. The actor in question was one of the biggest names in Hollywood, a megastar known for his charm, precision, and control. But on Tarantino's set, there's only room for one vision. At first, things went smoothly. The two men admired each other's craft, and the early scenes were electric. But soon, cracks began to show. The actors started questioning certain choices. Why a scene needed to run long? Why a line had to sound a certain way? Why the violence had to be that extreme? For Tarantino, those questions weren't creative discussions, they were challenges. "You don't ask Picasso why he used blue," he once snapped during a late-night rehearsal. "You just let him paint." Tensions grew until one day the actor refused to shoot a scene he believed was too much. Tarantino, furious, stopped production and told the crew to take 5. Witnesses say he confronted the actor directly, saying, "You don't get to decide what's too much in a Tarantino film. That's my job." They finished the movie, but barely spoke after that. When asked about the actor years later, Tarantino gave a rare, icy answer. "Let's just say I appreciate actors who trust me." He didn't. That feud would have been legendary on its own, but another, even louder, followed. This time, it wasn't just ego or artistic differences. It was about respect. The second actor was a rising star at the time, young, bold, and eager to make a name for himself. Tarantino cast him in a gritty, dialogue-heavy role that demanded complete commitment. The problem? The actor treated it like a joke. He arrived late, improvised constantly, and openly mocked Tarantino's obsession with detail. On one memorable day, the young actor laughed in the middle of a serious take, saying, "Man, nobody talks like this in real life." Tarantino froze. Slowly, he turned to the crew and said, "That's why you're acting. You're not supposed to be real. You're supposed to be good." The actor's smirk vanished. From that moment, the relationship was doomed. Tarantino finished the film, but vowed privately that he'd never cast the actor again, no matter how famous he became. Years later, when that same actor publicly criticized Tarantino's old-school style in an interview, Tarantino didn't respond directly. Instead, he made a quiet statement at a film festival, saying, "Some actors outgrow their humility faster than their talent." It didn't take Hollywood long to connect the dots. These feuds weren't just gossip. They revealed something essential about Tarantino's philosophy. For him, Filmmaking wasn't about comfort, compromise, or appeasing stars. It was about serving the story. And anyone who got in the way of that, no matter how powerful, became expendable. He once said, "I love actors, but I love movies more." That single sentence explained everything. The clashes, the grudges, the legendary outbursts. Tarantino didn't hate easily, but when he did, it wasn't about personality. It was about principle. By this point, 4 of the 5 names on his never again list had burned their bridges. But the final name, the 5th and most shocking, wasn't about ego or betrayal. It was something far deeper. Because in the end, the one actor Tarantino claims he truly hates was someone who once reminded him of himself. For decades, Quentin Tarantino built his reputation on one unbreakable rule: loyalty. He stood by his actors when the studios doubted them, defended his creative family against critics, and poured his soul into every frame of film. But when that loyalty was betrayed by someone he believed in the most, it left a scar even time couldn't erase. The final name on Tarantino's hate list wasn't an enemy from the start. In fact, it was an actor he discovered, nurtured, and transformed into a star. They shared the same fire: passion for storytelling, love for cinema, and an obsession with pushing boundaries. For years, they were inseparable, both professionally and personally. Tarantino trusted him like a brother. But fame changes people. After the actor's breakout performance in one of Tarantino's films, he became Hollywood's newest obsession. Offers poured in, interviews lined up, and suddenly, Tarantino wasn't part of his orbit anymore. The man who once thanked Quentin for making him began to distance himself, downplaying Tarantino's role in his success. The real breaking point came during an awards season event. Reporters asked the actor about working with Tarantino again, and his answer stunned everyone. "I think I've outgrown that kind of filmmaking. Quentin's great, but his style's not really where cinema's heading anymore." That quote hit Tarantino like a knife. To him, it wasn't just arrogance, it was betrayal. He had built his career on loyalty and craft, and here was one of his own creations dismissing him for relevance. In private, Tarantino was furious. But instead of firing back publicly, he did something far colder. He erased the actor completely. In interviews, he stopped mentioning him. In retrospectives, he excluded him. When asked about the actor years later, Tarantino smirked and said, "Sometimes people forget who gave them their first real script." Behind that smirk, though, was disappointment. Those who know him best say that Final Fallout hurt him more than any creative clash. It wasn't about ego, it was about trust. Tarantino has always believed that cinema is sacred, and the people he works with are family. But that betrayal taught him that even in family, envy can take root. The actor went on to success. But something changed. While his career grew, his connection to the kind of raw, fearless filmmaking Tarantino represented faded. Meanwhile, Tarantino kept creating Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, each one proving he didn't need anyone's validation, and when he finally decided to reveal the truth at 62, it wasn't out of bitterness. It was about closure. "I don't hate them because they're bad actors," he said. "I hate what working with them taught me about people." Those words summed up decades of triumph and heartbreak. The 5 names on his list weren't random. They represented stages of his journey. The seer first taught him never to bow to ego. The second showed him that friendship and fame rarely mix. The third and fourth reminded him that respect must be earned. And the fifth, Si le tourne to s'entendre, taught him that trust, once broken, never fully heals. When Tarantino finally retires, as he's long promised to do after 10 films, he'll leave behind more than masterpieces. He'll leave behind lessons. His legacy isn't just about dialogue or violence or cinematic flair. It's about standing by your vision, no matter who walks away. And as for the actors he claims to hate, in a way, they helped shape him too. Because without conflict, there would be no fire. Without ego, no ambition. Without betrayal, no masterpiece. As Tarantino once told an interviewer, his voice calm but cutting, "I make movies out of love, but sometimes love burns." That's Quentin Tarantino, a man who turned passion into art, art into legend, and pain into fuel. And at 62, after all the glory and the chaos, he's still doing what he's always done best, telling the truth, one reel at a time.